we go. Hello, everybody. It's the Survivor Michigan Recap Podcast, Wolverine Wars. I'm Naomi, here with my co-host Travis. We're back, baby. We're here to talk about episodes 1 and 2 of the newest amazing season of Survivor Michigan. Travis, what's up? How you been?
Oh man, it just seems like yesterday we were talking about season 3, and then boom, season 4 is right in our lap. And I have to say, I love this cast.
I do too, and I'm not just saying that because they were nice to me last season. All right, and joining us, we have the editor of season 4. It's Ian, one of the editors of season 4, not to shout out to your other co-workers, cohorts, I don't know. But Ian, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you. Very, very happy to be here. Yes, there's a many people who are editing. I do sort of lead the charge, but there's a number of us, so I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Right. You're just team captain.
Exactly.
And with us, we have our very, very special guest. He is the second person voted out of the game, but number one in our hearts, it's Tom. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. And I feel like I should, say, if I had Texas Longhorns for, my time on season 4, maybe it's horns down.
Horns down, horns up.
A little sad about my elimination. Sure.
I can only imagine. I thought you delivered throughout. I would say a very Jacob Derwin-esque performance, but in the most sort of positive notations of that. So we're starting off talking about, first of all, episode 1. Tom, you were there. You were a part of this vote. Can you give us any details about the whole way that Erin came to be the vote out, and also why you spelled her name so wrong?
Absolutely. So it's really interesting because like how it's edited versus how I felt in the moment, right? It's very, very different, right? Erin was going from day one, and there was definitely a way it could have been Ben, but I think that me and Jack were both there were reasons that could have been Ben, but I don't think that the reasons that could have been Ben were because of Ben's story. The only reason it would have been Ben, and Ian did an amazing job in editing this and building suspense, and I gotta give you credit, man, because there was no doubt in that vote, right? The only reason it would have been Ben, though, is originally I was very paranoid about the 4 of us engineers versus the 4 of the actor, the SMTD, if you will. And I remember me and Jack had talked about if we vote out Erin, we could go down 4-3 in numbers. And so there was kind of a conversation there. And so I could see potentially it would have been Ben there. But I think even if we had decided to flip, I think that I was never going to throw out Ben's name to Jack because, in that first week, I wasn't kind of sure about those returnees, trying to feel Jack out. And so I wasn't willing to, clearly second week, I was willing to, kind of be a little bit more loose in throwing out names, but, at least that first week. And also, I know this isn't addressed in the edit, of course, because, it was kind of behind the scenes or whatever. But the first day you see that 4-person meetup, right? And Erin's there, and in the first 2 minutes she's on a phone with her friend and stuff, right? So we're like, well, clearly maybe you could have had a little bit more interest going in, right? But then we go and we see her, and she's like, we're going off to this meeting where we're like learning the rules, here where the ideal boundaries are, whether or not we can blackmail other contestants and stuff. And and Erin goes in, and they're like, oh yeah, you guys all need to be quiet, right? Erin goes in, and she's immediately like sees Kat, and it's like, oh, like, hi, great to see you, as Erin said in her confessional, like, trying to build it up. And I remember me and Jack at the time, and probably a lot of other contestants were like, whoa, okay, very easy boot. So yeah.
Also, we have Adam from the season here to just say hi and give you a little shout out, little heart. So, Travis, what's on your mind? We have Tom here. What do you want to know about?
So, like, I'm curious. Like, you're obviously very into the game. Did you like when you saw the cast initially? Did you like have snap judgments of people, or were you kind of like giving them the benefit of the doubt before you kind of made your opinion on them?
Okay. It's interesting because so I would say that the person I had the most snap judgment on was Aaron immediately, and I was like, Aaron, I don't know if I can, I didn't know that we were going to get along. So I remember watching, I watched, Maryland All Stars, which honestly kind of really hurt me, I think, because I went in and I was like really ready to play, my back, I was ready to play with everything I had because that's exactly what all the people in Maryland All Stars did. I might have been more of a Ryan boot from season 5, just playing a little too hard, right? But I would definitely say that. Oh, in terms of snap judgments, that's right. Jack, I really vibed with Jack immediately and stuff, and I was really worried going into it about kind of being the like easy vote out person. I know I talked briefly in my confessionals. Oh, I'm seen as a little bit more of an outsider in life, and kind of going for that. So I was really worried about like, oh, you're gonna be like the weird kid or whatever. But on that first day when we were all meeting at No Tie and stuff, I had really kind of felt like I meshed myself with the group, and so like in terms of like the first impressions and stuff, I was definitely like, okay, I'm not gonna go as well with Aaron, Nate. Nate seemed really shy to me. That was my first impression of Nate, actually.
Very interesting, I would say.
Yeah.
Discrepancy.
Katie didn't give me much of a first impression. Megan, I really bonded with Megan. Megan gave me the impression of she's playing this game really, really, really hard. And you're not going to see this, Travis. I know you were the one that asked the question. You're not going to see this on camera, but the first day when Jack is talking about this minivan alliance, right? 30 minutes in, right? And Megan said Megan was the one driving. And so I had always interpreted it as her driving, and I lived on Central Campus at the time. And as Ian knows, Central Campus is like 15 minutes away from North Campus, right? And Megan dropped off Camila and Aaron. She drove all the way up to North Campus, left me in the car, and then drove out. We parked, and Megan was like, I like the two of you guys. I want to do a 3 alliance with the two of you guys. So I'd always interpret it as Megan's here to play.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
He's especially like early footage, like maybe anything we didn't see, especially involving Tom that you want to talk about or that maybe we didn't get to see in the episode. I know you're going back in the archives of your brain.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's honestly so much. Like Tom filmed a lot of really, really good content, and obviously we didn't have time to include it all because you can't just have the whole episode be Tom. But we tried to get as much good stuff in there as possible. One thing that was there that is funny is Tom, I feel like you can confirm this. Tom basically runs around the campus. So it is interesting to me that he ended up finding this idol or whatever, because Tom literally runs to class. Like literally he runs around. Like he was running around campus all the time, and I feel like that is how he played Survivor as well. There's not really any footage of this because you don't really include people going to class, but it was like a whole thing that like you could, after this season aired or after the season was filmed and stuff in the next couple of years, I'd always see Tom like running around, and everyone would see Tom literally running to class. I feel like that's just kind of how he is. He runs to class, he runs through Survivor, and that's kind of what I would say.
I actually think that this is like a perfect season for you, Tom, in some ways, where it's like you're right out the gate, you're ready to play, and you have these returning players that are also dying to play again and rectify what they were doing. And I do think originally you were getting along really well with Bennett and Jack. Was that your plan when you first saw that Well, you first start off with Jack, and I would say you start off playing very hard by looking for an idol clue.
Yeah.
Did you know that you were going to get along with the returning players?
So my thought going in, and it's interesting that you say that having returnees is an advantage because they want to play hard, because that's absolutely true. But I would say that there was kind of a double-edged sword in that when I came into the game and I knew that there were going to be returnees, I mean, it's easy to say this, right? It's easy to say, oh, I would have played much differently if I hadn't played on a season with returnees, right? But I remember thinking to myself that exactly that, like that playing on a season with returnees, that they were desperate for people to have as kind of threats out of the gate. So anyone but me, they wanted to have kind of, if you will, the shields. And so I remember kind of thinking to myself, and I know I was like, if you scheme and you scheme, if my thinking was that the returnees on my tribe, above all else, would value someone who was, going to stir the pot and do a whole bunch of crazy things, and they would try and keep someone like that in the game as long as they could, as long as they knew that they weren't going to, be turned on by that person. And so, I was originally intending, I would like to say, to, play hard to try and, convince Jack and Ben to kind of keep me in. And I would definitely also say that having returnees in the game, I remember on the first night after that 3-person alliance, and you're not going to see it because we didn't film it, but I was very cognizant of the fact Ben's here to play. Ben's told us the story. So I called Ben, I know that people always analyze Survivor Guatemala. And if you remember, Danny Boatwright came into the tribe. I want to say it was like Yashar or whatever, right? She came into the tribe. She's down numbers. Who she go to? Who's in power? Stephanie. And she goes to Stephanie and kind of, works her way in. And I remember being like, okay, that's the key, is going to the people in power. And so I went to Ben and I was like, Ben, I really, really trust you and stuff. And, I didn't say final 2, but, we should make an alliance, keep it on the DL, all that stuff. Yeah.
Ian, do you have a favorite metaphor that you guys watch?
My favorite Tom metaphor? I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be the countries. I think the countries is just amazing, honestly. But I also really like when he's talking about the KGB, and he's like, I'm sniffing them out, I'm sniffing out what they're gonna do. I'm the KGB. I'm coming for them. Like, I thought that was amazing. I was a huge fan of these metaphors. I thought they were amazing, and so I would say the countries, though, by far. The countries. It was interesting. The one where he's talking about how they're gonna. Tom, do you remember who did you say that Aaron was?
Okay, so
whoever it was, I just remember that in the editing, I was saying that I had at one point an explosion of that country's map, like Tom and Megan and Jack's countries had destroyed this other country, and then I decided that maybe having a flag of Bolivia or something exploding would not be a particularly good idea. I was like, all right, that's actually a bad idea, but I was like, this is kind of funny at first. So
yeah. I got a lot of flack from my housemates. They were like, oh, you're having these countries, so I need to put out a disclaimer for all the Paraguayan listeners of this podcast. I mean no ill will. Paraguay is actually top 2 or 3 countries on my list of, where I'd want to visit in South America. Okay. The reason Paraguay was included in the metaphor, which I don't know if it made it, which is kind of similar to the reason I included Hungary, was Paraguay is the only Latino majority country in South America where the majority of the population doesn't speak Spanish. They speak Guarani. And and my point in that metaphor was that Erin didn't fit in with the rest of the tribe. She wasn't speaking the survivor language, if you will, that the rest of us were.
Austin from season 3 is here to say that your metaphors were always appreciated for him. And I loved them too. I really did. Like, nothing explains a situation better than a metaphor, except to maybe Ben, who seems to be lost at sea every time you had a comparison to make. Travis, what did you think of the metaphors and everything that was going on?
I found them to be fascinating. I think it's a great way to process things, but an important part of a metaphor is being able to connect it to an audience. Like a metaphor works for yourself to be able to process it, but if you're going to share it with others, they need to get the metaphor or else they're lost. And I felt like that kind of summed up Tom. He was like so intelligent and so ultra aware of how this game works that he had people like, nothing against her, but Aaron, who, just were kind of like, there, it's college, I'm doing this, it's a thing. And like, this is like, Tom has been training for this for years, And so he had that energy and the metaphors like were perfect fit for him. But I do feel like he kind of lost that connection with some of his peers because he was like, so smart.
Tom, I'm curious, what about Jordan Schubel you think drew you to wanting to replicate his game? Like, what about Schubel did it for you?
So I think for me, I think there are a lot of things that you can kind of admire in his kind of style of gameplay, if you will. But I remember thinking that it was very important, especially on a season with returnees, not to get lost in the mix, not to kind of fly under the radar, if you will. And I remember thinking to myself, if I kind of fly under the radar and kind of let other people kind of try and dictate things too much, that they're going to come after me and I'm not going to be able to have numbers on the back to kind of to go against it. And so I remember from the get-go feeling like Jordan Schubel played a very scheming game. I felt like watching All-Stars gave me the kind of the mistaken impression almost that if I did enough scheming, if I talked to enough people, it was College Survivor. People were going to play it a little bit more, lackadaisically, if you will, not talk to as many people. So as long as I was the one talking to all the people, that I would be fine. And I clearly wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, that's also. Oh, go ahead, Travis. Go ahead.
I just want to know what his perception was of your tribe, because to me they're very different, the two tribes, and I wanted to know like what you thought of the dynamic of your group compared to like the dynamic of like, what is it, Tokidoki? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
That sounds so weird to me, but yeah.
Yeah. So the dynamic that I really missed on my tribe was Jack and Camila, and Jack and Camila's relationship. And I mean, I guess that speaks more to the strategy than like overall perceptions, if you will. Overall perceptions of my tribe, definitely that we were the weaker tribe, that we were, after watching the pickle, you can imagine, having been a lifelong Survivor fan, you watching these people, they're, kind of lackadaisically, handing off the pickles, oh, I don't know, Ian, you edited that, just, you can imagine just kind of going from that. And, I know Megan made the comment on the screen. She was like, Tom was like, Tom, if you don't perform in the challenge, I'm going to vote for you or whatever. And just to make it clear, that's not the intent of the message that I was giving to Megan. But I think that maybe the what's inside that message was that I was very upset with the lackadaisical energy from my tribe, and felt like there's a scene from this clip I've watched of Debbie from Cow Wrong, I think it is. And she's like, talking about, she needs to make a move pre-merge. And she's like, oh, come on, we need to pick it up. Get the stuff together, That's how I felt.
It feels like Sandra in Winners at War yelling at Tony to pay attention. You know, like, hey, this game's not over. Come on, let's go. I mean, you guys lost to a tribe that had a guy with a bum ankle, and you still lost. Like, that's, I think, I feel your frustration on that, Tom. I was like, come on, guys, can we pick it up, please? Ian, how did Megan tell every single person on her tribe that happened? I felt like there were at least like 5 videos of her really being like, oh my God, Tom said this.
I think it's important to understand. I think Megan, operates in a similar mindset to the returnees in this very anyone but me mentality. So I think Megan, she heard week 2 from Tom basically that she might be on the bottom. Nate's telling her, she's hearing that perhaps her and Nate are on the bottom and everybody else is in this alliance of 5. And she starts kind of panicking and latches onto the first thing that starts to kind of, work for her, which is essentially maybe going after Tom a little bit. And, oh, Tom, told me that he'll vote me out, whatever. And she sees she has this kind of in with Camilla, and then she's kind of using that to she's a little more schemy than I think has been led on. And I think that Megan very much was very afraid of her own situation and wanted to make sure that she was not going to be on the bottom if like they all just voted out Nate or something. Basically, is what that's what I think was kind of going on in her head at that point.
For sure. Tom, who did you, watching this back, underestimate? Is there anybody that you didn't realize how much they were playing, how hard they were playing the game compared to what you maybe perceive them to be doing?
So it's really difficult for me because, okay, I've seen, hours and hours and hours of unedited footage. So it's difficult for me because I started watching that so long ago that I don't know. I would say, candidly, I think maybe Nate was the one that surprised me the most, because Nate had always kind of struck me as kind of being a little bit more shy, especially in kind of group settings, not talking as much. It's interesting, when I got to see him on the first day there, and he gives Ben this look like, oh, don't talk to me like that, and just to hear some of the more, if you will, colorful language, it's not really how I was going to see Nate. I was seeing him as, kind of, shy, really nice, I don't know, maybe a little bit more, just kind of your ordinary kid.
Mm-hmm. Matthew, and maybe, Ian, is there footage of this? Matthew wants you to talk about your secret Schubel Stan alliance. And hello, Matt. We'll get to the returning players soon.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom. What alliance is this he's talking about?
I'm going to talk about my secret Schubel Stan alliance. Well, I think that it's the kind of thing that I think I need to kind of leave under. Matt, what Matt doesn't know can't hurt him. That's my answer.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm really curious, like, who, if you were on the other tribe, who would you have seen yourself working with? Is Matt one of the people that you would have worked with, or who would you have gravitated to over there?
It's interesting. I think if I had been on the other tribe, I think it would have been Dale, because one of the first confessionals that Dale gives in episode 1 that you guys see is Dale says, I was looking for kind of the youngest person on the tribe, right? Shannon, to kind of build that connection with, right? And I think that Dale, another clip that wasn't really necessarily filmed is that before the first challenge, we had like a kind of get together where we were all like talking to each other and stuff. And I remember Dale kind of coming to me and being like, hey, like, it's cool to meet you, and I remember kind of vibing with Dale. And so I would say Dale, but I think that on the other tribe, I think that there were a lot of people that I could have worked with. I think I really could have worked with, Jackson. I like, I think the only person that I was like, kind of a little bit, I don't know, kind of apprehensive about was Adam on the first day. Actually, I was like, oh, okay, like I don't know, or that's kind of my memory, is kind of being like, oh, probably not going to work with this kid as much. But yeah.
And now Matt's upset that Dear Alliance apparently isn't real. We don't want to start a feud for All Stars 1,000, but look, Ian, in terms of this episode, I think maybe what Tom said, I feel like was kind of true, right? Aaron was pretty much going to go home from the jump. It was Ben, the threat Ben was medium. I feel like people are keeping Ben in the game for later as like a target with all this drama from season 3. I'm curious about everybody's reaction to season 1 coming out. Are we going to see a little bit more of that in the future, especially in regards to like the reaction to Matt as like a Survivor super fan? We saw a little of it, but I was kind of surprised that we didn't hear more. Is that coming? Is that coming? Can you tell us?
Yeah. I think we'll see a little more of that in the future. And I think the reaction to it will be different perhaps than people expect. I think Matthew has a very interesting storyline this season, and I'd be very curious to see how people react to it. Certainly the season 1 coming out is kind of a unique situation that we haven't necessarily seen before with college survivors. And it had a very unique outcome, I will say. In terms of the episode with, kind of faking that Ben was going to go home, in episode 1, you always want it to be suspenseful. And there was a lot there of people feeling sketched out by Ben's story, not being sure whether maybe they didn't want to vote him out quite yet, but there was a lot of apprehension around Ben, and certainly he was who Aaron was targeting. And it also sets up very well, I think, Ben's storyline for the season, which is that he has this whole baggage of season 3, and he's really trying to, throw it off. He's trying to play a different game. He's trying to be a different kind of player. And whether or not that works, we'll see. But I think this kind of sets up his arc as well of, everyone knows I did this thing and I'm just going to come out and say it so that it doesn't get out there some other way. But that also, could rub some people the wrong way potentially. So that was kind of the thought process behind it.
Travis, I have one big question. Just Tom, what did you think hearing about what Ben had experienced on season 3 when he tells all of you guys? What was going through your head?
It's amazing, the editing of that scene. I love the music that you put in the background, Ian, where it's like, I can't even describe, and then you like slow cut to Megan and she's like, jaw dropped, like, I was never gonna like display that to Ben. But I remember thinking to myself, I was like, at the time I was very much like and I kind of regret this, but I was like I need to vote this guy out. For me, it was that he did it after the votes were read. He told us he did it after the votes were read. And because then for me, it wasn't strategic, it was personal. And that was the thing that really kind of made me like, I don't, trust this kid, or I don't like that. It's interesting because so much was made, I feel like, strategically of, hey, this why did Ben do this? Why did Ben do this? Telling you guys about this, day 1 and stuff, right? And Ben, justified it as, oh, well, I didn't want Elisa to slip, right? But I think that, honestly, Ben was, kind of wanted to kind of absolve himself of his sins, and maybe wasn't the best forum for absolving himself of those sins in, Survivor, which is a pretty brutal, cutthroat game. Yeah.
I'm gonna just piggyback off that. And actually, I completely agree. I think that there was a lot of comments on episode 1 of people being like, "Why would Ben do this? I can't believe he did this." And I don't think that there was. I think there was some strategy to it, but I think mainly he was thinking, I'm gonna play. He's like, I'm gonna play a more emotional game. I'm gonna be more honest with people, and I need to like clear the air on this, like for myself, for my own, sake going through this game. I don't want this like weighing on me. is I think
Mhm.
honestly what a lot of it came down to. So I agree.
Yeah, Travis, how do you feel about this?
I feel like his confessionals read a little bit like a therapy session, and there's a lot of like catharsis going on where he's trying to process his journey through season 3 and this nagging fear of repeating the same sort of mistakes. And so he's so focused, I feel like, on that aspect of things that it's actually clouding his view of the game because it's more about he's really focused on his storyline, which is important. Everybody wants a good storyline, but a good storyline usually lines up with like playing a winning, a good game. And so I hope that he can figure out how to, like come to terms. I think he now with these 2 votes under his belt, he feels a sense of confidence and probably is a little more assured. But we've also seen how Ben gets when he's confident, and will that like blow up in his face? Because it's going to become. I feel like that tribe is going to become the Ben tribe, and he's either likes you or he doesn't like you, and he's going to feel like he's dictating the votes. That's my perception. That's just from watching Ben last season. So, yeah.
My favorite Ben moment is in episode 1. Ben, I don't know if it made the cut, but Ben has this confessional where he's like, this tribe was specifically designed to, emotionally, torment me. He's like, I have a person on my tribe named Aaron. I have a PhD student. I have, all these things. He's like, I want to avoid all these old experiences and move on. And these producers.
Right. Well, so I think that I what I really am looking forward to, and I don't know when it's coming, I'm sure Ian does, is the Ben Eliza reconnection, because we saw in season 3 that they got along very well. I was rooting for that to become an alliance, but it never worked out. And I think that I'm curious if Ben talked to Eliza to be like, hey, I'm gonna tell my tribe about this, so don't worry. I'm curious what he did to discuss this situation with her. Because I also think that like Ben tried to explain it as best he could, but it's so hard to sell in that moment how frustrated he was with the tribe he was on, and like, what a terrible position he was in, where the emails, I think, really changed the course of Aaron's game and changed the course of obviously Will and Emily's game to an extent. And I felt like he was justified in like shaking the ground up, but from an outsider's perspective. And maybe Tom, I don't know if you agree or disagree, it doesn't transfer when it's the person who's retelling the story, it doesn't transfer. And you don't understand where that like really sort of tough emotional I guess it was just like emotionally draining to be in that cast at some point for Ben particularly. So yeah, fuck it. Destroy their game with some emails. Like there you go.
Which is not how he told the story. When he tells the story, he's telling it like it's, kind of like
so wrong.
Screw this person. I wouldn't say that he didn't tell the story to make himself out to be in a good light. Let's put it that way. And I think that he did that because of him, Ben not wanting to, paint himself in a good light for something that he felt a lot of regret about. But
right.
I think that I think that the show itself of season 3, I don't feel like it takes a side, on
I agree.
In the right and wrong, and that's because I don't think there is necessarily like a right or wrong. I think it's more like this is a thing that happened, and here's how it affected all these different people, and but I do think that Ben, it's one thing that's very interesting in the way we were able to edit it is that we knew when we were editing season 3 what's going to happen with Ben, with Eliza, with whoever in the future seasons, and so you're able to like kind of like Ben really, I would say like in season 3, like we were seeing that as when he gets voted out, that's like the midpoint of Ben's, arc as a character. Cause we knew that he was coming back for season 4. He's going to have this whole other story where he has to like, try and whatever he's trying to do here to make up for season 3. And so that's a really interesting thing that I don't know if they're able to do on CBS Survivor as much, where you already know like years ahead of time what's happened. I mean, maybe they do in some cases. I don't know. I guess they're a few seasons ahead of what they're shooting.
Maybe it to me almost feels like the Survivor Cambodia, the Cagayan to Cambodia arc of Spencer, where he's very headstrong in his first season, very emotional, not the same sort of success level that Spencer has, but then comes back for a second time and is really focused on his emotional growth and focused on being more connected and having a more positive experience. I mean, I love that about Ben, is that Ben knows that he wants to have a better time playing. And I think that's like, I'm excited that that's the storyline for him. And Austin agrees with me, so I know I'm right. Thank you, Austin. Okay.
I want to highlight Eliza a little bit. There was one moment I noticed. I think it was in the second episode where the infamous Survivor party is. We got a little snippet. No one jumping off a roof or anything this time, but it was
Not this time.
like
Maybe
it was
next
still a
time.
really fun event. But Eliza's really smart, and one thing I noticed is, you can kind of read between the lines. Ben was supposedly not at this party, and a lot of season 3 people were. And so Eliza right off the bat is like, I'm not friends with Ben, or I don't know exactly how she said it, but she's like, like, I can't stand Ben or whatever. And then, she's clearly like working with him, part of this like returnee alliance. I do think it's going to be a complex storyline moving forward to see. I mean, that's a legit thing, but they also have a history, and that gets into your brain. And so I'm really excited to see their storyline unfold.
Mm-hmm. Tom, did you know did Ben tell you anything about Eliza? I'm just so curious about how information about the returning players was sort of, or what information was given out in regards to the returning players from them or from the people who knew them.
That's a really interesting question. Because I remember, I think that there was a very cognizant effort on the part of all of the returnees to kind of downplay connections between each other. Like I'm remembering, Jack kind of being like, "Oh, like we talked with Eliza," and Ben kind of, Ben obviously said in his in the first day that you get to see him say, "Oh, like Eliza and me, Eliza and I never really saw eye to eye."
Mm-hmm.
But with so much of that stuff, though, that was something that I was never ever going to be able to cross verify until at least the swap situation. So at some point, it's like, why even ask? If it's a lie that I can't verify, why have someone feel like they gave me information that was a lie and now they have to vote me out for it?
Mm-hmm. Tom, what else is on your pages of notes? I'm dying to delve into those.
Oh my gosh.
What isn't on it, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's really interesting when Ian was doing the editing. So I guess I really want to explain the season 2, like how that went down and stuff, right? Because even though I feel like the viewers get some perspective of it, I think that there are certain things like left out. Like, you can understand why I would vote for Katie, but maybe not really. So I want to explain what happened there. The way that I had seen that game was, as I had told Jack, 4 versus 3. And I said to Jack, I am fine going down 4-3 because Jack was like, I really don't see the 4 of them having a thing. I don't see it, right? So I said, I'm fine going down 4-3. But I said, if we go down 4-3, though, I really need to we really, really, really need to downplay that the 3 of us are working together, because I didn't understand Jack and Camila's relationship. Again, it all gets back to Jack and Camila's relationship. Didn't understand that. So I had assumed closest person Camila was either, Nate, Katie, or Ben. And I had kind of gone with Ben, right? So I said to Jack, we need to downplay this 3, right? And I said, ideally, what we can do is put it 2v2. So we're going to say to Nate and Camila that it's between Ben and Katie. And we're going to say to Ben and Katie that's between Nate and Camila, right? Problem was, so that, or I mean, I don't know, problem, if you will. I had talked to Katie, and Katie wasn't necessarily playing as hard of a game. I mean, I don't know who anyone was playing as hard a game I was, but Katie, I had said, oh, we're both from the same hometown, got to keep this connection, low, whatever. Didn't really give it that much. Katie liked me, trusted me, and she, Camila, and Ben had met the first week. And so from Katie's point of view, perfect. Let's do, 5-person alliance. And so Katie and Ben were like, let's do this 5, right? I didn't feel good about the 5 because from the 2 out were going to be Megan and Nate. And I didn't care as much about Nate at the time, but Megan at the time, I consider, Megan's my closest ally. I'm not going to cut Megan, right? And you're like, well, it's fine. Just do Nate, right? Problem is that I had figured, okay, well, if I'm, Ben and I'm Katie, I knew for a fact that I think Ben may have talked to Megan once, but from my perspective, Ben had no relationship with Megan. Katie had no relationship with Megan. From my perspective, the 3 of the SMTD people were always, I was never going to be able to convince that 5 to go for Nate without revealing to that 5 that it was the 3 of us.
Okay.
You're like an algorithm because you've literally weighed out every possible scenario and put them on a graph and thought, okay, well, here's the probability of this happening. And it's brilliant, but it's also scary as fuck for everybody else that's watching you play because the game so well. And I feel like at least my perception was that someone like Katie, grasps the game too. And she's looking at you like, why are you, Bobby Fishering this and playing 13 moves ahead?
So I'd had that.
That's a good metaphor, Travis. It's a good metaphor.
And I definitely, I see what you mean, right? So I think the big thing that I think that my tribe, I didn't tell them this enough, and I really should have, is that from my tribe's perspective, we lost the second immunity challenge, right? And I was thinking there are going to be either 3 or 4 eliminations before a swap, right? And so we're likely, if there are 2 more eliminations, given our tribe's physical, dearth, if you will, we're likely to go in down numbers, right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'd said there are two things that are important if we go down numbers. The 2 things that are important are that we have a solid cohesive 5 so that we can split, so that if the split is 3-3 and then 4-2, we're always guaranteed to at least, or if the split would be 5-1 and then I guess it would be 4-2, that we would always be okay, that we would be okay. And even if we lost the two immunities before swap or 1 immunity before swap, that we would be down numbers. You don't have to understand the specifics of the numbers, but we would be down numbers, right?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, well, if we're going to be down numbers come swap, who are, the targets in the swap are always going to be the people who have the highest targets on them, right? So I thought to myself, well, that gives me a little bit more leeway to be, more strategic and more schemy, because if we go into a swap, Jack and Ben are just absolutely desperate at this point as returnees with the huge target, target number 1, target number 2 on their back, that even if I was steamy and even if that scared them, that they were so desperate at that point for anything that would protect them in a swap that they were going to have to keep me.
So I want to ask something of Ian because and this involves you, Thomas. Is this was such a fun idol episode, right? And we haven't even talked about this yet. It's 45 minutes in. Ian, I was genuinely, I was watching it like 2 a.m. on the edge of my seat when like there's that moment when it's like, unless Tom has an idol, and then it like cuts, and I'm like, holy fuck, like I was just like alone screaming at my computer. So Ian, first I want to know how you came about like the editing of this, and then Tom, we're gonna get into how you found this. But Ian, right off the bat, one of my favorite editing moments of like any college survivor. How'd you come up with it?
I mean, so I've done like a few seasons of this now, and I'm always trying to come up with kind of new ways to like stay ahead of the audience in terms of how you edit the tribals, you know, and what you think is going to happen. And so I was like, okay, everyone's voting for Tom. There's no way to make it look like Tom has successfully flipped anybody else because all their footage is just them talking about how they want Tom out. But we know, like, you know, Tom has this idol, but he doesn't play it. So let's build up the whole thing of just being like, who is Tom going to vote for? Like, build it up as much as possible that Tom is going to play this idol, that somebody random is going to go home. We're not even sure who, you know. We're throwing it out that it's going to be Ben because I thought that was the most dramatic since Ben is the one who told him about the clue. I'm like, that is so horrible if that's how Ben goes home, that Ben tells Tom, Ben, you know, saying all this stuff about no one's going to find an idol with such a vague clue and all this stuff. I just thought it was hilarious to go from that to cutting to Tom being, usually, you know, with the idol finds, you have some suspenseful music, the person's digging around, whatever. With this one, it just is, Ben's like, so I don't think they found it. And the next clip is Tom going, took me 5 minutes to find, like, it was right here. And then I was like, we'll show everybody's vote. We'll show everybody's voting for Tom. And the whole thing is just going to be, oh my God, who is Tom voting for? Like, that's going to build up. As you said, I was like, I want that to be the big suspense of it is, oh my God, they're literally showing us every vote is for Tom. So it cannot, Tom is not going home. Right. And then, of course, he does anyways in this really kind of tragic sort of moment.
Well, and just to talk about innovation and editing technique again, like in the first episode, we saw the same thing, right? Okay, who finds the idol? Not this person. Oh, it's because Matt got there earlier. Wait, just kidding. It was like, was it Jackson or was it Dale who finds it?
Dale.
Dude, yeah. Again, only on College Survivor can somebody scream, hidden immunity idol, let's fucking go. And nobody will ever know that you have an idol. It's insane. But I love this this change of editing and this really interesting storytelling. Tom, and Ian, continue, please.
Oh, the only thing I was going to add is that with like idols in general, I found that I personally come to like find it kind of boring when people talk about the idol and like they search for it and stuff, and we already know that someone found it. So especially with like this season with Dale finding it so early, I was like, I wanted to include that Matthew footage where he talks about, you know, it throws back to season 1 with his amateur homicide detective thing. But I was like, but that's after Dale finds it. So let's just put it beforehand and we'll just go backwards because then it creates like the suspense. So yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
It really feels like, it feels like really comedic editing of like, you know, just kidding, 3 hours ahead of time, like, you know, 3 hours previous. Like it really is like it's punchline after punchline of these idol finds. Travis, what do you want to know about Tom's idol find? I'm curious.
Well, I want to know a little bit more about his idol play because I'm really big on watching like tribal council dynamics, where people sit, how the questions impact the potential vote. And you are very, very interesting during this during the tribal council that you go home, Tom. You're in the front corner and your body language the whole time is like you're almost out of your seat and you really are pointed away from the rest of the cast. And one of the things I have seen with people that have an idol, it's obviously like it's a double-edged sword. It's this magic power that can save you at any moment in time, but it only saves you if you play it at the right time. Otherwise, it's a waste and it can alienate you, or you can go home, with it in your pocket. And so reading the tribal, reading the people there is a huge part of being able to play that idol. Do you think, first of all, if you had turned around and kind of gotten more of a vibe, that it would have hinted to you to play an idol? Or do you think back like, no, I was so convinced it was Katie that I wasn't going to pick up that?
You know, there were just so many things that tribal that were really freaking me out. The day of tribal, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'll never do this again because it was a horrible mistake on my part to say I was free, because, you know, bit of background, production always does a when to meet, right? And I was working that day from, I want to say it was like 12:30 to 3:30, and the tribal was scheduled to be at 4. So I had 30 minutes, right? And so immediately, because I realized that I was kind of pulling off a bigger move this week, that I had to get my ducks in row, right? So I called up Nate, I called up Ben, I called up, Jack before tribal. Just double check. Plans Katie. I didn't tell Ben the plan was Katie. I told Ben the plan was Megan. Ben was like, 100% it's going to be Megan, right? And the whole dynamic going into tribal, I was super nervous because I just felt like, Nate was giving me sketchy vibes, just something wasn't right. And then that was only amplified at tribal when, Ben answered that question about, people cross comparing stories, and Ben said that, and I was immediately like, oh my gosh, Ben, what, is that referring to me, right? And ultimately I remember being like, so much like, I was like, I trust Megan. And it was because I revealed to her the 5-person alliance, right? And I think that there was an emotional, there was a feeling that I had that Megan would tell me, because if she didn't tell me, from my vantage point, it was going to be her next. Because if I went, then it means that the 5-person alliance or whatever, as I had already said, oh, I think it's going to be, how am I ever going to get it to be Megan or Nate instead of Megan? I'd always thought after me, it's Megan next. And I thought that is the primary incentive she has to tell me so that we can change something up. And I mean, we had a plan in place to, if she told me what would have happened, what I could have done. But because she didn't tell me, I was like, Tom, they're sketchy vibes, but at the end of the day, you got to trust your closest ally, and you got to save this idol for a swap. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's hard. Also, I think, I'm sure people might give you a little bit of a hard time about throwing names out there, but I think your tribe was an interesting dynamic where you got to throw out like certain names to people, although I don't know that it was, I mean, I guess I'm curious about the context of like when Ben rings up a drunk Jack to be like, by the way, your name's out there from Tom. What was your side of that moment? Because I assume you had no idea that Ben would call him, but Tom, you also called Jack, right? You tried to talk to him.
Yes. So it's at that party there was a party for the Survivor 4 season 4 premiere, right? Yeah. And Megan had texted in our tribe group chat, and she had said, hey, I'm going to have a party. You guys should all come. And I was like, I'm on North Campus, sure, I'll go to this party, So I went to the party, and, I talked to Megan, and, 20, 30 minutes into talking to Megan, I was like, Megan, there's this 5-person alliance, but I had said to her, I still I think that we can work with Jack, and I think that we can, I had said to her, the key person I would want to get out is Katie. But I said to her, in order to get out Katie, we need to talk to Camila, right? And Megan, she's like, oh, I want to talk to Nate because Nate's also on the bottom, right? And I was thinking to myself, you shouldn't talk to Nate because if we can, if that plan is a little bit more risky, but if we can convince Camila to do Katie, I mean, I didn't want to talk to Nate before we had talked to Camila and figured out where Camila was at because Camila was critical. The plan that then the problem was with that is that then after the Megan meeting, I'm leaving from Megan and I'm paranoid about this 3-person alliance, right? And I'm paranoid. What is Ben going to think when he finds out that I was meeting with Megan, who from Ben's vantage point, I'm in this 5-person alliance. Why am I meeting with Megan, right? I need to downplay my relationship with the 3, right? And I said to myself, I can't downplay this relationship with Megan because I just can't. I didn't think that Ben would buy if I had told him, oh, I'm just, I'm close, I like Megan and I went to this party, but I'm still going to vote her out, right? Didn't think he was going to buy it. So I said, well, the only other person I have is Jack to throw out. So I said to Ben, Ben, I'm not really sure how much I can trust Jack because in my mind, I wanted Ben to think I was closer to Jack I was closer to Ben than I was to Jack. I wanted Ben to think that I was, I had misconceptions about Jack. I was worried about Jack and Ben did. But then Ben decided with that information to go to Jack and rat me out. And the problem was that I hadn't gone to Jack before. I called Jack, but Jack didn't pick up the phone. And so I had to kind of BS it on the fly. Tried to clarify things with Jack later, but I wasn't, direct enough. And
Yeah. This is why, and maybe Travis, you can agree, or maybe in your LRG experience as well, I kind of had a sense, I was like, I know that Tom is throwing names out there, not because he wants to vote everybody off, but because he needs names to throw out there to seem like he's not as connected with other people. So I didn't think that you were in particular, like, I think some people are going to misread this as like, oh, Tom was literally talking about everybody, but that's not necessarily true. Also, Aaron, season 3, Aaron, hello. 2 Survivor Machine Kings on screen right now. We love to see it. Couldn't agree more, Aaron. So Ian, when you're editing this together, obviously Tom, I knew this wasn't like your full intention, but I did love the scene of you writing down every single person that Tom had thrown out there as an option. Can you speak a little bit more about how that scene came together?
I mean, when I realized it was possible, I was like, well, we're definitely doing this. Like, it's rare that someone throws out every single name on the tribe. So, and it's not even just that he threw them out in meetings with people, it's that he's saying them all in the confessionals, which shows that's what you're actually thinking, So it'd be one thing for me to go to each person on the tribe, and saying to them, oh, I want this person. But Tom in his confessionals over the course of a few days suggests basically every person as a legitimate plan. And I was like, this would just be too good. It's very funny. We have to include it. And it really just kind of showed how the whole tribe sadly kind of like came together and was like, well, we don't know who he really wants out, but it seems like none of us want him around anymore if he's going to have thrown out all of our names. So I felt like a very natural thing to include. It was kind of funny. Yeah, whenever there's something, I'm always looking for things to mix up. Sorry, Tom. There's so many College Survivor episodes, where it's just so long of people talking to the camera, because we don't have as much camp life type stuff. So we're trying to find ways to break that up with different kind of goofy bits and gimmicks. And this is just another example of a really good one, thankfully provided by Tom.
Tom, what were you going to say?
Oh, no. I was going to say, thought it was hilarious.
Sure.
And especially my favorite part of it is where Jack is like, Tom, I'm not really sure of Tom's game plan, like final 15, he's going to turn on me at final 15. The whole point of, and I'm like, Jack, I agree with you. Jack, that is ridiculous, right? I'm not going to get you out at final 15. I'm not going to get you out right before a swap when you're a big target I can use as a shield. But, Jack was so convinced that, you know, he was like, well, if they're smart, they'll get rid of me. That I was playing, you know, yeah. There's so much irony.
Travis, anything else you want to talk about? We're at an hour, so
I
we've been having a
really don't have a
blast.
whole lot else. I do love the game of What If, and so I was hoping so bad that you would play that idol. I don't necessarily wish that Katie would have gone per se. I was very curious to see who you would have voted. So if you had played the idol and Katie had gone and you were still in the game, what would the next round have looked like for you?
It's interesting. So assuming that, so assuming my plan of getting Katie out didn't work, but I had played the idol, I'd had some sort of premonition, and I had played the idol. I think that I would really not be sitting in a great spot, and I think that because I think that there was so much of a target that was going to be on me because of that, and I think that, ironically enough, in voting out Katie was probably the one, you know, person left who was kind of open toward working with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
That I think it would have been really difficult. I think at that point, I think I would have gone to Ben, because I think I knew that Jack, I would have known that Jack would have turned on me at that point. And I think I would have been fed up kind of with Jack and Megan. And I think I would have tried to tell Ben about, hey, Ben, there was this 3-person alliance with Jack and Megan. And I had thought that was my plan this whole time, and kind of throw Jack and Megan under the bus as much as I could. But it would have been hard. And who's to say that my tribe would have just thrown a challenge to get me out?
That's true. I feel like at that point it becomes like a real, if they think you're already possibly throwing names out like crazy, even though that's not your intent, they might essentially panic and sort of overcompensate for that situation. Ian, anything else you want to talk about from this episode that we haven't touched upon? Or episodes 1 and 2, both fantastic episodes, by the way. Congratulations to your whole team. I can't wait to keep watching. Anything else you want to talk about?
I guess I'm just curious where people think it's going, what people think is going to come down the pike in the next couple episodes or so. Who you guys are feeling really high on right now, who you think is going to go far based on the first 2 episodes.
Oh God, I'm just praying Tokidoki goes to tribal council, because I want to see Kat get blindsided. Because oh my God, if you can't read a room of people not enjoying a YouTube video,
so
you're never gonna know if someone wants to vote you out. And it was so visceral, because like I've been there, right, where you show someone something and they don't think it's funny, but I have never been like, hey, check out this 15-minute long video of this thing. Especially considering like YouTube, I would say YouTube videos are some of the most like, you either love it or you don't, of like internet content. I can't wait to see that group of Adam and Kat kind of get blindsided. That to me is like what I'm like dying to see, but I'm also dying to see the Eliza Ben alliance. Like I love them. I'm Jewish. I wanted to see the 2 Jews get back together on this season. Like, just
happy
destroy
Passover.
the whole game. Yeah, happy Passover, everybody. And so that was something I was looking forward to when this cast was first announced. So those are the 2 big things for me right now. That's what I'm looking forward to. Travis, how about you?
I love Shannon. I think her confessionals are amazing.
Oh, yeah. Shannon, Queen Shannon.
She's like just, you know, I think she's like a really warm person in a weird way, but she's just kind of got this kind of Courtney Yates vibe to her a little bit. So I'm excited to watch just some of those confessionals moving forward. I really want to see Jackson fail. I don't know, something about guys that are like just so overly confident like that. I just really want to see him like face plant. You know what I mean? But in general, I think you have like a really great group of like storytellers. So I think it's going to be fun to see the story evolve, because they're all telling it from their perspective, and I really don't know. I kind of assume that El Norte will keep losing, but I'm hoping that they don't.
Awesome. Well, Tom, any final thoughts? Anything before we wrap this up that you want to talk about? I know Travis and I both loved getting to watch these past 2 episodes. Tom for All Stars. We're starting the train here. Anything else you want to touch on?
I guess I wanted to say that, I mean, I've said this before in the comments section and stuff, but I guess I really wanted to, throw out props to Ian and Sam and Mason and, all the other people who are doing the editing. Adam did the editing for this season, for this episode in particular, Adam Slinsky from Tokidoki. I think that the episodes are edited in an amazing way. And I guess I would say that completely different tone of the episodes than I was anticipating, but I really appreciate it. And, as a diehard Survivor fan that, took a lot of, different angles and stuff, and, has enjoyed watching the show growing up, I honestly think that these are better than CBS. And so if you're not on the Survivor Michigan train now, you better be.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
Thank you, Tom. Very high praise. Very high praise. Tom, you keep watching, even though you were voted out. You'll watch the rest of it.
Are you serious?
No,
absolutely.
Oh my god.
No, I know.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. So Travis, we haven't talked about winner picks yet. We've seen 2 people go home, and I can't necessarily say that Aaron was going to be my winner pick. But Tom, I think you were in consideration for me. The whole Survivor Maryland fandom, I think, was really, convincing me. But Travis, who's your winner pick now that we've seen the whole crew?
I mean, I'm totally Team Eliza. She's smart. She's charismatic. This time she's on the winning side, so that could definitely work in her favor. But she has baggage, and her proximity to Ben could really just blow up right in her face. So if I was going to pick maybe a backup, Dale's really, playing his cards right. I don't know if he can maintain all the way through, but I would say those are my 2 right now.
But Travis, he has a wife. Like, how can he win Survivor? He has a wife.
He's like 40.
As someone who's 26, how dare everybody on this cast? And I would say my winner pick is honestly, it's Katie. I think I love Katie's emotional intelligence. I think she's really fun, and I think people are going to underestimate her, and she's going to make it to the end. That's my pick. Ian, say nothing. It's been great. Yeah, so we're going to be podcasting every Thursday at 8 about Survivor Michigan, about the episodes. And you can catch each episode. Is it a Wednesday premiere? Or is
Wednesdays at 8 p.m. You can catch the episode. We have polls that you can take afterwards, saying your favorite player and such.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you watch this, if you like it, tell your other friends who like reality shows, who just like watching college students do goofy things, because I think they would probably like it too. But
what's the number for my fans to dial in with?
What?
Oh, right. Yeah. What's the American Idol text this number to vote for Tom?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get that started. I think that'll be towards the end of the season. Okay. But you guys you're on Twitter at Survivor UMich. You're on Instagram. You can join our Survivor Michigan viewer group. I think you can just check out live reality games, subscribe to our channels to see every.
I have been told that there's a rumor that we have a TikTok, though I have not seen it because I am not on TikTok. But I've heard it's a rumor that there is a TikTok you can follow, I suppose.
I swear to God, if you guys don't have Cooper dancing on that TikTok within like a month, I'm not recapping this show anymore. I need that.
Okay, I'll make that happen. I will make that happen.
Please, just Cooper doing the Renegade or something, for God's sakes. And you can support Survivor Michigan by following them on all social media and especially subscribing to their YouTube channel. You can join myself, Tom, Ian, I think, on Discord, where we're chatting it up about Survivor Michigan. That's the Reddit Discord, the Survivor subreddit. And Live Reality Games, check us out. We're here. We're live. We're fun. We're talking about all LRGs all the time. Travis, thank you for being my amazing co-host as always. And Ian and Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. It was a
Thank you
great
so
time.
much. Yeah.
No problem. Hashtag get Cooper dancing on TikTok, everybody. You heard it here
Yes.
first.
Get that trending.
Let's get that trending, folks. All right. Have